Good morning. And I have to say likewise with Frances. I just love that lady. Everyone hear me okay? I know I have a soft voice and I have sometimes. So everyone okay? I really feel like this may be a disaster because as you can see, our pew is a little bit busier than usual. We have our grandkids here. And Zeke, of course, was in charge of them this morning because I went to Nabinway. And so when the little guy started acting up, I said, "Did you bring snacks?" And he said, "I've got a dum-dum sucker." So I put that in his mouth, and pretty soon I saw him sucking on something, but no sucker. And I said, "Where's the sucker?" And he went, and he showed me the stick. And I thought, that baby's got that sucker in his mouth. And pretty soon he started choking, and it went under Pastor Tim's chair. So this could be quite an interesting day. Thank you for having me. I'm going to start out with just how I started out with in Nabinway. And I guess it would be somewhat of a disclaimer, but I'm going to say it's more of a confession. You know, I've really, really struggled to put something together. And I couldn't understand why. And then, you know, I'm a school employee, so I'm on vacation right now. School's out. And I realized that I kind of took a spiritual vacation, too. I really did. I know most people wouldn't stand up here and admit that, but I'm not like most people. And I realized what I share so oftentimes in my counseling is that you can't give people what you don't possess. And I thought, what have I gotten from God lately? Not much. Why? Because I haven't sought him out. You know, I can tell you where to get the best watermelon. I can tell you what the temperature of the pool is. I can tell you what's happening on some TV shows. But haven't had a lot of revelations from God. Now, 3 weeks ago, when the sermon started getting closer, I started sewing. Man, I was listening to sermons and Christian music and in the Word, because I teach my kids at school that you reap what you sow. And I was trying to sew. I was making up some time. But what I also teach my children at school is that you never sow in the same season that you reap. So right off the bat, I want to apologize for being spiritually lazy the last several months. But I do know one thing, that our God is bigger than my spiritual laziness, okay? And I've been in prayer, and we're not going to hope. We know that God will give someone what they need to hear today. The name of my message today is called First World Problems. Now, if you don't know what first world problems are, let me give you a definition. The always trustworthy Wikipedia says this. It is a slang term used to refer to issues in first world countries that are complained about only because of the absence of more pressing problems. Now, the Oxford Dictionary, which is probably a little more trustworthy, says this: first world problems are relatively trivial or minor problems or frustrations. So if you combine those two, this is what I've come up with. We have a definition that looks something like this. First world problems are frustrations and complaints that are only experienced by privileged individuals in wealthy countries. We're all privileged, and we all live in a wealthy country. Here's a couple of examples that I thought of. Ordered a tall but got a medium. When is Starbucks ever going to get it right? You know, years ago we went to Wendy's and Drake didn't get the right thing on his hamburger. And for years we said, you know, you never get it right at Wendy's. You know, first world problems, right? Here's another one. We just got a second car. Now I have to take 2 cars out of the garage to get to my motorcycle. Here are some other examples of first world problems.
I I hate when my phone charger won't reach my bed.
I hate when my leather seats aren't heated.
When I go to the bathroom and I forget my phone.
Le mette radio dans machine à laver, yo commence à sentir.
I hate it when my house is so big. I need 2 wireless washers.
When my milk gun makes my hot water taste too cold.
When I have to write my maid a check, but I forget her last name.
Je ne peux pas écrire message devant marcher en même temps.
Je te quitte casse-moi en bas.
Moi, raï, les voisins ont bloqué Internet là.
I hate it when I tell them no pickles and they still give me pickles.
I don't know about any of you, but I had a lot of mixed emotions when I first saw that. The first one was conviction. The second one was shame, because I can see myself in several of those. But I was also moved. Really thought about what comes out of my mouth. And Drake and I kind of used it as a pet phrase for a little bit in the summertime. And whenever one of us would catch the other one complaining, we'd say, first world problem. In the first day, we did that. By noon, he had nailed me 5 times. 5 times. I'm a pretty optimistic person and a positive person. And I thought if I am nailed 5 times, this could really be a good sermon for people, to let us know that there's so much more to life than the grumbling and complaining we do. And I was on a roll. And then on Tuesday, when I was waiting for my son from golf, God brought to my mind a quote that I had heard several years ago from Mother Teresa, which changed the whole direction of the sermon. And I'm going to read you the quote right now. She says, the greatest problem in a first world country is not poverty or hunger or disease. It's being unwanted, discontented, lonely, unloved, and uncared for. We can cure physical diseases with medicine and a hungry stomach with food. But the cure for first world problems is much more difficult to cure. There are many in the world who are dying for a piece of bread. But there are many, many more who are dying for something else. The poverty in first world countries is a different kind of poverty, and it is much harder to fix. What Mother Teresa is saying, that you and I and many of us in America, there's a poverty of our spirit and a poverty of our soul. And as I've searched the scriptures over the last couple of weeks, and I've thought a lot about it, and I've even done some Googling, I believe that we develop this poverty when we chase after the treasures of this world, the money, the title, the reputation, the power, the stuff, the position. And some of us are probably saying, oh, I don't do that. Could be the church kitchen committee. We all struggle with that. And as a result of chasing this stuff, we lead our own soul down the road to poverty. Mark 8:36 is our verse today, and it says this, for what does it profit a man to gain the whole world but lose his soul? You know, I think of Solomon in Ecclesiastes. My husband's reading in Ecclesiastes right now, and he was reading it to me the other day. And Solomon had made a decision, as we all know, to deny himself nothing. And he ate whatever he wanted and drank whatever he wanted. And he had livestock, and he built gardens and parks and everything that anyone could ever hope for. And at the end of his journey of denying himself nothing, he found that it was all meaningless. Meaningless. I found a quote on the internet that talks about the paradox of our times, and I've heard it many times before, and I'm sure you have too. And some people give credit to George Carlin, And as I said in Nobbinway, what a great church we live in when you can quote Mother Teresa and George Carlin. Okay, I'm not certain George wrote this or if he said this, but let's move forward. It talks very much about the poverty of our soul. We spend more, but have less. We buy more, but enjoy it less. We have bigger houses, but smaller families. More conveniences, but less time. We have more degrees, but less sense. More knowledge, but less wisdom. More medicine, but less wellness. We have multiplied our possessions, but reduced our values. We've learned how to make a living, but not a life. We've added years to life, but not any life to years. We've been all the way to the moon and back, but we had a hard time going across the street to introduce ourselves to the new neighbor. We've conquered outer space, but not inner space. It's a time when there is much in the showroom, but not too much in the stockroom. Wow, doesn't that sound like poverty of the soul? And it's all because we are so busy chasing after the treasures of this world that we create that poverty in our own souls and spirit. And did you catch the word busy? We're all busy. Isn't that a key term? People ask me, how are you, Deb? Busy. Busy makes us feel important. Busy makes us feel like we have value. Busy makes us feel successful. And don't get me wrong, the Bible states clearly that we should be self-sufficient, that we should make our own way. But somewhere in the process here, we've made being busy the virtue and not the work. I want you to think about a couple of these numbers. 574 million days. I should say 574 million, and then go on. Days that American workers gave back or didn't use from their employees. They gave up their vacation time because they were busy building the treasures of this world. Now, I have a hard time wrapping my mind around 574 million days. But what it amounts to, I Googled this, is 20,000 lifetimes. 20,000 lifetimes. Here's another number, 15. 15 is the average hours a day the American works. Maybe not so much just at work, but home. We have homes that we have to maintain, but we also have homes that we want to look good, and we have landscaping and all that stuff. 15 hours, you add the 8 hours of sleep, that gives us an hour a day to cultivate our souls, to cultivate our relationships, to build what God wants us to build. Doesn't that seem a little off-center? 23:1. From the scientific term, if you look at it this way, think of a molecule. In a molecule, you'll find atoms, and atoms are bonded together, okay? And when you add a little bit of energy to the molecule, the atoms start vibrating, they start moving. And if you add a little more energy to it, they start vibrating more. And eventually, the molecule and the bonds break apart. I think that's a really, really good analogy for our busyness. We have this bond with our family. We have our bond with our God. We have a bond with our church family, our community, and we get busy. We get busy chasing after the treasures of this world. And the busier we get, the more the bonds break apart. Busyness is rupturing and fragmenting our relationships. I think all of us would agree with that. Do you know, as you can see, I'm blessed to have my grandbabies here. But last week, the thought actually crossed my mind, how am I ever going to fit that in? How am I ever going to fit that in? Think about it. Look at those 3 precious, wonderful boys. Well, 4 with my son, yes. But that's what chasing after this world's treasures does. There are 5 things that I believe we miss out on when we're busy chasing the treasures. And as a result of that, we have poverty of our soul and spirit. Number 1, we miss out on the presence of God. Psalms, and I'm not a Bible scholar, I wish I was. I figure God knows where it is, and I'm good with that. But in Psalms it says, be still, and know that I am God. You know, when I'm in school, and oftentimes I'm in school from 8 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, there's hardly a second where I can be still and know that I am God. It's busy. God doesn't go anywhere, but my thoughts do. My emotions do. I go somewhere else. We are called to be still and know that He is God. When we think about the presence of God, I think that when I'm away from the presence of God, I grow in apathy for the things of God. I become very apathetic toward that. I shared another way that I watched, I can't think, James Robinson often. And for those of you who don't know, he shows a half-hour show. The first 20 minutes, he has a new author, someone that has a new sermon series, all these wonderful, great things, and they talk. In the last 10 minutes, he has video about young children that need food, or young children that need shoes, or lots and lots of needs. Do you know what I do often? Watch the first 20 minutes and turn it off. Why? I'm kind of apathetic toward the things of God. Because I'm busy, and I'm burdened enough, and I don't want to be burdened with somebody else's needs. Think about how silly that sounds. Is that what God is calling me or you to be and to do? You know, I've heard this saying, I don't know where I heard it first, so I can't give anyone the credit. If you don't have an appetite for God, it's because you're too full of yourself. I think about that often. How come my appetite for God has waned this summer? Because I'm too full of myself. It was my summer off, and I was going to enjoy it. So 1, we miss out on God's presence. 2, we miss out on God's provision. Not that God isn't providing, but we forget who's providing. When we're so busy making it our way and doing it our way and being able to do it, we start believing that we are the ones that are providing for ourselves. And in actuality, it's God. I thought of this because when I was looking for a good example about that, is that I've had the luxury of raising 4 children for a period of time as a single mother. And then I've had the luxury of being in a wonderful family with my husband who provides. And I'm so very thankful for that provision. But when I was doing it alone, I looked to God for my provision. And I acknowledged it. And I thought of my little son, Devin, who, when he was in preschool, and this would have been about probably about 20 years ago, I wanted a new outfit for him, because it was preschool graduation. And I had to go to Manistee, and in Manistee, I found an outfit for $15. I can still tell you what that outfit looks like. Blue jean shorts and a colored black shirt. You know why I know? Because I knew that that was provided for by God. Now, different way. We're more financially stable. And Drake needs school clothes. I go into Dick's Sporting Goods. He throws some shorts and shirts on the table. I pay for them, and we go out the door. I forget, because I'm busy in chasing the treasures, that our provision comes from God. It does not come from what I'm doing or for what Zeke is doing, but from what God is doing. So 2, we miss out on God's provision. 3, we miss out on God's inheritance. What is God's inheritance? It's His Word. And when we're busy, what's the first thing that goes? our quiet time, right? We give it up because we've got things to do. We've got things we have to accomplish. I go back to, again, when I was a single mother. I owned a little store right here in town, and I'd bring my Bible every day. It was quiet. There's not a lot of people in Rexton. And I read that Bible for hours, and I prayed. I still have journals that I prayed many years there. And you know what? My external was not so great at that time. In fact, it was actually kind of ugly. But you know what? My soul was rich. It was rich. It was full of joy and God's love. I wasn't seeking the treasures of this world. Number 3, we miss out on the inheritance of God. Number 4, we miss out on the relationship with God. Because we're so busy, right? We're so busy. If I'm busy and Zeke's busy, our relationship struggles. I don't want to say struggles, it never struggles, but it suffers. It suffers. Same with our relationship with God. When we're so busy, our relationship with God suffers. Phil Visser, I hope I'm saying that right, but he's the creator of VeggieTales. And I just heard this on a sermon that Kathy Miller had given to me. He said, God is enough. And if we believe that, if we really believe that God is enough, then if we have this person over here who has God, and just God, and we have this person over here that has God, great marriage, nice home, good job, we would believe that they were equal because God is enough. Now, I believe that in the abstract, I really do. But I don't know how many of us would really believe it in the concrete. If we would really say, God is enough, when he started removing all the treasures of this world from us. And I think of the gentleman in Mark who says, forgive my unbelief. I want to believe that. And that's where I'm going. But I don't know about you, but I'm not there yet. So number 4, we miss out on our relationship with God. And the 5th one is when we chase after the treasures of this world, and when we have a couple, we miss out on the victories of God. The victories of God. Why? Because we think we've won. We think we're the one that did it. I'm the one that made it happen. I have the smarts, I have the ability, I have the position, and I'm making this happen. And then I think back again when I was a single mother, and I lived in a trailer with 4 kids, and the water pipes froze. I didn't have the money to hire a plumber. So I got under those, I prayed, and I got under that trailer, and I unfroze those pipes. And I praised God because I knew that the victory was God's. It was not mine, it was God's. Today, if my pipes froze, call a plumber and write a check. And that's not bad in itself, but what's bad is if I miss the opportunity to know that that was a victory from God. So let's go over them one more time. The 5 things we miss when we're busy chasing after the world's. Number 1, God's presence. Number 2, God's provision. Number 3, God's inheritance. Number 4, our relationship with God. And number 5, the victories of God. So what's it going to be? And I'm preaching to myself, let me tell you today. Are we going to be so busy chasing after the world's treasures that we miss out on those 5 wonderful things of God? And we live our lives poverty-stricken in our souls and our spirits. Do you know, I read somewhere that they said the emergency room equals the playing field. And it does, doesn't it? When you're in the emergency room for an emergency, Nothing else matters. All those treasures that we've worked so hard to get and accomplish mean nothing. Mean nothing when you hit the emergency room. So church, as we go this week, let's really think about Mark 8:36. So really ponder that and think over and over again as we make decisions. For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his very soul? Let's pray.